God bless. I'm Reverend Luis Gierbolini, Associate Pastor of Central Christian Church in downtown Indianapolis. I am grateful for the invitation from our National Pastor for la Obra Hispana, Reverend Lori Tapia, to participate in 30 days of empowered people, empowering people. I am a child of the church. I was born and raised in New York City and attended the Disciples of Christ congregation in Brooklyn, New York, called the Iglesia Cristiana Sinaí. This is the church community where my spirituality was formed and the gifts that I have were nurtured. I am blessed that while at Sinai, my family, including my parents, aunts, and uncles and grandparents, were a part of the leadership and led in various ministries throughout the church. I am extremely grateful for the examples they set before me. Sinaí holds a dear place in my heart, and I have many great memories there. And one great memory is that this is where I met my wife, my future wife, and my suegros. I often tell people that the baptism class that I was a part of, which was taught by my grandmother, included my wife and my suegros. My wife and I, Lurcy, have been, this coming August, will be married for 14 years. We have two amazing children. Our son, Omari, is 18 years old and has recently graduated high school. And our daughter, Emery, who is 7 years old and will be entering into the second grade next year. Although I grew up in the church, my choice of career was not to be a pastor. I understood that God had a call for my life, but I did not think I was going to be a pastor. I thought that I would help out in the church, would serve in ministries, would most likely continue in worship and praise, but I did not think that that's exactly where God was going to take me. Nevertheless, God placed me in a field, in a career that prepared me for my call. I am a chef by trade and spent over 20 years in the culinary arts field. You're probably thinking to yourself, wow, this guy looks kind of young. How is it possible that he has this much experience? I started working in kitchens when I was 14. I have 2 undergraduate degrees in culinary arts. I have worked for some of the most prestigious restaurants in the world with some of the best chefs. I have taught culinary arts in many different settings and most recently at a college level. And I share these things not to gloat about my background, but to highlight the fact that because of the church and the kitchen, I stand before you today as someone who is empowered. When Pastora Lori invited me to speak, I was skeptical about how I can contribute to this conversation. Not because I don't believe that I'm empowered, but how the word is empowered is often viewed in our context today as a society. I often see or read the use of the word empowered in the same way I see various different self-help books and programs that are out. A means to get people to purchase books, products, and attend seminars to strengthen the self and live out a best life that they didn't think they had. While I am for personal betterment and growth, I am not for the exploitation of people's emotional and spiritual status. As I sat down, prayed, and struggled with the word empowered, I was brought back to these 2 distinct places in my life, the church and the kitchen. As I reminisced about my past, I asked myself some questions. 1, what does it mean to be empowered? To be empowered is to be made stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's decisions in their life and claiming what is theirs, their identity and their rights. I recognize that I have been made stronger and more confident, and I do have control of the decisions that I have made, and I have claimed my own identity and what God has called me to be. Second, I then ask myself, how have I been empowered? As I look back, this was evident within my upbringing in the church and the kitchen. I was empowered during Sunday schools, during Bible studies and youth groups. I was nurtured at sleepaway camps and weekend retreats. My gifts were poured into when I was taught to learn how to play an instrument and join worship and praise. I was affirmed when I was baptized, supported to speak up in assemblies, and encouraged to teach children and youth. Each step of the way, the church embraced me, supported me, and helped me claim the gifts and the call to ministry that God had for me. This was no different than in the kitchen. Each class, each chef, each job, I was formed to lead. And the systems where I was brought up, in order for you to move from one station to the next, you had to teach somebody where you were currently at before you moved on. You could not move on until they can run that station by themselves. Now, if this was done poorly, the person would not succeed. And the person could not succeed because you did a poor job in helping them, in training them, and helping them understand what their responsibilities were. I was taught to teach what I know, to share what I have and not hold back. Your team, your kitchen, your staff works as good as its weakest link. And you need to ensure that there are no weak links. In the world of a kitchen, one does not become the head chef just because they are the best. You get there by teaching others, by empowering others. You succeed as a whole, not as an individual. I am empowered today not because of my own doing and my own gifts, but because others have taught me, others have empowered me and helped me succeed. Which leads me to my last question. How can you empower others? First, recognize that you are empowered, that there have been people who have poured into your life. What you have is sufficient enough. You don't need degrees. You don't need years of experience. Do they help? Yes. What is needed is a heart that is willing to share all that God has given you. Second, this is an ongoing process. God is not finished with you yet. Third, how can you empower others? Anyone God places in your path. Share what God has done for you. Share the gifts that God has given you and be willing to be used by God. Last, your age does not matter. Where you are, whether you're a preteen, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a young adult, a senior, God can use you and will use you so that you can pour your life into others. Remember, the success of us as a community of faith is not based on one individual. This is not a task that should be left up just to pastors and leaders. To empower others, to share what God has given you is something that the whole church is responsible for. How are you going to empower others. God bless.